Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Whitney Grindle. Some of you might know me as Miss Grindle if I am your college advisor. But yes, tonight we are going to be diving into some of just the multiple healthcare fields that you can pursue through obtaining some sort of college degree or college certificate. So this is the Medical Field Pathways Workshop brought to you by the Kansas State College Advising Corps and with speakers from Johnson County Community College. Yeah. So topic outlines tonight. First, I'm going to introduce our speakers and let them introduce themselves to you. And then we're going to be diving into practical nursing and health occupations, then EMS, forget the EMT in there, and then following that, dental hygiene. So yeah, JCCC speakers today. Unfortunately, Dr. Rudikill is sick and she is not able to join us today. However, I have some information to share with you about the PN and Health Occupation Program at Johnson County Community College. But yeah, I am joined, luckily though, by Dr. Foat and Dr. Hanson. Would you guys like to introduce yourself?
I am Dr. Hanson, and I am the director of the Dental Hygiene Program at Johnson County Community College. I have been in the field for well over 30 years, and I love dental hygiene. I'm happy to be here tonight.
All right, I'm Dr. Foat. I had the good fortune of being the director for the EMS program. I started in EMS way back in the military about 30 years ago, and it's kind of led me along a career of first working in the military and then working on ambulances in a multitude of states. And I'm fortunate to be with the college now, bringing up the next generation of EMS providers.
Yeah, thank you guys so much again for joining us, but let's go ahead and get started. So sweet. The objectives of today's presentation kind of already went briefly over this, but one of them is to understand more clearly some distinct career paths you can take in the healthcare profession. Unfortunately, I think there's this idea that it's either nursing or full-on medical school. As you'll learn tonight, that is not the truth at all. There are so many paths that you can go down if you are interested in healthcare, and not all of them require a bachelor's degree or master's or a doctoral degree. A lot of them can be completed or even started upon with an associate's degree or even a certificate. So that's what we're here to explain to you tonight, and maybe this will get you thinking about all the other paths that may be open to you. Also, to help decide which medical path may be a good fit for you and your wants or needs, let's be honest, not everybody wants to go to a 4-year degree program. That is not a requirement for some of these jobs. You can do so with a 2-year degree and passing the state examination. So yeah, let's dive straight into it. Another introduction slide, just for fun. But yeah, so let's start with practical nursing and health occupations. And just for your guys' knowledge, this is based off of Johnson County Community College's offerings. It may be different from community college to community college, and of course, from 4-year institution to 4-year institution, but this is just a baseline for your general understanding. So do be advised that it could differ based on what school you end up attending. But first, with the PN program, licensed practical nurses are authorized to provide direct patient care under the supervision of registered nurses or physicians. LPNs can work in hospitals, clinics, nursing homes, or in home health care. So I really wanted to explain LPNs because there's this assumption that RNs are the only nursing career path. That is not the case at all. LPNs is a more accessible, sometimes depending on your affordability or maybe the amount of time you want to spend in college. LPNs might be a good pathway for you. So as you see here, LPN programs usually take about a year, so 20 to 30 hours per week. It can be found at community colleges such as JUCO. Students will study, for example, basic nursing, anatomy, physiology, and pharmacology, and practical care, all with usually a laboratory element, so you're getting real-life practical experience. So some example courses at JCCC for this program includes KSPN Maternal Child Nursing and Clinical, which is where you basically learn a family-centered approach to women, newborns, and children. The Foundations of Nursing and Clinical Studies, so that's how you learn to be a nurse and to practice nursing skills. Fundamentals of Pharmacology, principles of pharmacology. So think about when you have to go to the pharmacy to get some medication, but also how to administer medication, especially if you're working in a hospital setting or, of course, a long-term care facility. That is a very important skill to have in that field. But as you can see, maybe you want to work with children or babies. You can specialize your focus in one of those areas, such as pediatrics, obstetrics, gerontology, surgery as well. If you want to be a surgical nursing technician, there are pathways you can follow with that, as well as mental health. So maybe you want to work with individuals who may have addictions or mental health conditions such as eating disorders. You can learn how to work in a clinic for one of those. So lots of good paths through a PN program. And I did forget to mention this, but this presentation will be available to you. I will make sure everyone here gets a copy. And if you are watching this later through YouTube or through another file, contact us in the contact information down below, and I will be able to get you this PDF sent to you. So you will have access to all these links. There's also some certificates. This includes the Certified Medication Aid. That's how, of course, you learn how to administer medicine. The Certified Nurse Aid, basically providing care to patients in long-term and acute care facilities. And of course, the Home Health Aid. I personally predict that home health will become even more important as we move into the future. It's increasingly getting a higher presence of need because unfortunately those positions aren't being filled as rapidly. So if you're looking for a program that could lead you to a very well-needed career, home health may be one to look into further. And that's just where you help individuals who can still live in their home, but they may need some additional medical care and observation. But yeah, that's it for the PN program. So Dr. Fote, would you like to take over the EMS slides?
Absolutely. Let's see what's on that first slide.
Perfect.
All right. So as far as careers in EMS, there's traditionally been really working on an ambulance as part of an EMT paramedic team or an EMT team. But there are a expanding number of careers you can go into with those certifications now, working at local emergency rooms. We have some medical research facilities, but there are really 4 levels of certification. The first one that's not on there is emergency medical responder, and it's not on there because it's really not what I would call a career, and it's not something you could use to be gainfully employed. So then EMT is really that first level that you'd have the ability to go out and work and earn a full-time income. There are an amazing number of positions. And we have now departments in the local area that will now hire you as an emergency medical technician and then pay you to go to school and pay for your school for you to become a paramedic. Paramedic is the highest level of care in the pre-hospital realm, and they essentially administer advanced life support. The difference in the education, EMT is really a 1 semester to 2 semester undertaking, and it wouldn't be full time if you did it in 2 semesters. After EMT, paramedic would be about another year because it's going to require an associate's degree. All right, let's try the next slide.
And that was it. Do you have anything to further explain about just your general experience in the paramedic field? And I'll go back so we can still look at that.
Absolutely. I just didn't remember how many slides there were.
No,
so I got into EMS as I was, trying to figure out what I wanted to do at the end of high school. And I could figure out a lot of things that I didn't want to do. I didn't want an office job. I didn't want a standard 9 to 5. I didn't want, and really I wanted to be able to be active, to be out and about, and doing something that was kind of exciting. And so that's how I ended up going down the EMS pathway. I did start in the military, but then as soon as I got out of the military, I continued on as a paramedic. So I think it's an interesting career, and it's been a great one for me. But you can also pick up additional certifications. So once you have your paramedic credential, in less than a year, you can bridge from paramedic to registered nurse. So there's a lot of people that don't stay in EMS their entire career, but use it for a stepping stone. We also have a large number of students who's planning on going to medical school. And medical school today no longer requires volunteer hours, but it requires that you've done something with actual patients. So we'll have a fair number of people come through with the intent of working as an EMT and perhaps working as an EMT into the first year of medical school to have some hands-on patient care experience. Paramedic program is about a year long, and it is an associate's degree. And so it has, in addition to the paramedic classes and your EMT class, you pick up 17 hours of gen ed and get conferred the Associate of Applied Science.
Nice.
I think
And that's some great information to know
unless
about
there's
how
any
you can actually bridge between a paramedic and a RN program. Because I think a lot of times students don't want to commit immediately to a 2-year or even 4-year program. They might want to dip their toes into it a little bit. Now, using Johnson County as an example, can students expect to get hands-on experience during their credit hours? So will they have like an internship or laboratory?
Yeah. So all of our classes are what we call integrated lecture lab. So we kind of got an approach where we'll talk about something. So let's say we're talking about strokes today in class, and then right after that, we get in the lab and we start running through stroke scenarios. And if we're running through, cardiac emergencies the next day, we talk about it for a bit, then we go in there. The first 2 courses don't have an internship because internships are kind of expensive for the student. And then once you're in paramedic, there's an internship in each one of or 3 out of the 4 courses, both clinical internship, so about 360 hours in the hospital, and probably close to 1,200 hours on various ambulances in the local area.
Oh, that is intense learning right there. I don't, not many other programs besides health field, health studies, can you get that much experience in the field before you even receive a certificate or graduate. Sorry if you already mentioned this, but once you receive your certificate or associate's degree, is there an exam that students have to take?
There is. So for EMT, it is a state practical exam with a national cognitive exam that's a computer based. And then at the paramedic level, it's similar, except they're both a national cognitive and a national psychomotor. But they tell us by 2023 they'll be eliminating at least the advanced psychomotor for paramedics, and it'll just simply be the computer-based exam, which will now have some scenarios in it as well as standard test questions.
Gotcha. That's some great information to know. And you gotta love it how they constantly change and update things, especially for future college students when they're trying to plan that. But hey, it is what it is. But yeah, well, if there's any questions for Dr. Foat, we are going to have a Q&A section after our next presenter. So please save them. You could still post them in the chat if you want. We're just going to wait to answer them just so we can make sure everyone has an equal amount of time to speak. But yeah, Dr. Foat, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. Yeah. So yeah, next up, dental hygiene.
Okay, we'll go on to the next slide here. All right, so these are some of the things that dental hygienists do. The basic thing that we are is a preventive oral health care provider. And we examine the patient for signs of oral diseases. We do what you call scale and polish the teeth. We assess the oral health, and actually that would come first. We would assess them first, take the x-rays, let them know what is their status, what is their oral health status, and how can we fix any disease that they have. And we try to really collaborate with the patient in making their oral health goals. We try to help them understand the systemic reactions between what happens in the oral cavity and what happens in the body, and how those affect each other. Diabetes, heart disease, renal failure, all of those affect what happens in the oral cavity and other things. So we really try to help the patients understand what their risk factors are for periodontal disease. We do other preventative procedures like applying sealants on the tops of the teeth so that the teeth don't get cavities, and fluoride. And the biggest thing that we do, which I'm sure is in all healthcare, is document what we have told the patient and the services that we have provided. Here at Johnson County Community College, it is a 2-year program. However, there are prerequisites that you have to take before you apply to the program. So we have several science courses like anatomy, physiology, microbiology, with a lab, English, can't remember, psychology, sociology, and nutrition are all either prerequisites or co-requisites. So after graduation, just like EMS and paramedic, students has to take both a clinical exam and a national board exam. And the national board exam is an electronic exam. In my day, it was a written exam where you sat there for 8 hours and did the test, but they've moved on to an internet-based exam where you have cases, and it covers all of the information that you've had for those 2 years and applies them to a case-based scenario. And you have to pass both of those in order to actually get your dental hygiene license. Some of the rules and regulations across all the states are different. That's something that we've been struggling with for a long time. For example, when I moved here in 1993, Kansas did not allow dental hygienists to perform local anesthesia. But it was working its way through the legislation to change those rules. I was already certified in local anesthesia, so I waited until the law changed. So it does vary from state to state what you're allowed to do, but much of it is very similar. What else do you have for me there, Brittany?
Yeah, let's see. So that was just basic info sessions, which I'll go over, but Dr.
Okay.
Hanson,
Yes.
what would you say like the average student's experience in your 2-year program is like?
Very good question. So in both years of the career track, you are having your clinicals, and like Dr. Fote said, everything that you learn in your didactic course then applies. You have to have application in the clinical setting. So it goes together. And the other thing is that it builds from one semester to the next. So it's not a program where you can just memorize the stuff for the exam and then forget it. You really have to have a deep understanding of the material so that you have that application process. So the first year students, the first semester are working on each other as peers to get their basic instrumentation foundation. The second semester, you start seeing patients and applying everything that you've learned so far. And then as you go along, you just continue to refine those skills, and more is required of you as a student. You should, in the beginning, you're a novice learner. And then as you continue on, we expect that the students will become more competent as they progress and make less errors as the faculty are watching. Anything else you'd like me to add, Brittany?
Yeah, so you mentioned some prerequisites, or they could also be co-requisites. So should a student start a semester and then apply for your program? But
Yes.
what's the application process like?
They're very good questions. So generally, you want to start your prerequisites in one semester, we only take applicants once a year. So let's say you start in the fall working on prerequisites. The minimum that you have to have completed to actually apply are the 2 sciences and 1 gen ed. But I will say that generally speaking, students who have completed more of the prerequisites and have more under their belt are more likely to be accepted because they can complete everything before they come to the dental hygiene program. And all of the prerequisites have to be completed before they enter in that next fall. We look at, it's a 2-tiered process. So the first ranking is just for your GPA in your college courses. And then I have to think, it's a new acronym, ATDH. It's the admission test for dental hygienists. And this is a new exam that we've just been using the last couple of years. So we don't use the ACT anymore. This particular exam has a perceptual ability portion on it. So it kind of zeroes in on students who can, in their mind, move shapes around and change shapes. Because when you're a hygienist, you have to look in a very small opening using a mirror and looking backwards. And so it really takes a lot of that perceptual ability to be able to do something like that. So we look at those 2 scores, and then we rank the students according to their GPA and that exam. I don't see that. It comes from our institutional research and planning department. And then after the date of the close of the application, I receive that ranking. We generally have about 100 people that apply. We do about 60 interviews, which is the next tier. And then we accept 30 students. So it is very competitive. The interview process helps us to understand if the student has good communication skills, what do they know about really the dental hygiene program, because you can look really good on paper. You can have a 4.0 and score really high, but if you can't talk to people, then that would be a problem for dental hygienists, because you're working one-on-one with somebody and having to explain all the information to them. So those are just a nutshell of how the process works.
Yeah, thank you. That was a great answer for that. Dr. Foat's question actually formulated another question in my mind for that.
Okay.
Just like paramedics can apply to bridge to an RN program,
Yes.
can dental hygienists also kind of bridge to a full
Yeah.
dentist position?
Not a dentist, but some do. Some get their dental hygiene degree and then go on. In order to apply for dental school, you have to have a bachelor's degree.
Gotcha.
So there are institutions across the country that have dental hygiene programs, and they range from technical schools to the Associate of Applied Science, of what we give here at Johnson County Community College, and then to a 4-year institution such as UMKC. The actual skills of the dental hygienist, hands-on skills, and that part of the knowledge is really not any different. When you can jump from the 2-year degree at Johnson County Community College and then do what they call a bachelor completion program. And that is taking additional courses, additional gen eds, electives, and maybe some research and statistics that will help that student complete that bachelor's degree.
Gotcha.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. It shows you that, okay, just because you do this associate's program doesn't mean it's the end of the road, which
No.
I think is an important idea to have. You definitely can transfer those skills and oftentimes have to take less credits at the bachelor's degree level, which is a great way to save time and money while also earning some money by actually practicing in the field,
Exactly.
which is always a bonus.
Well,
But yeah,
and I might mention that if somebody wants to become an educator, such as myself, they have to have a master's degree. So completing that bachelor's degree would be an important entity if they wanted to enter a different type of setting as a dental hygienist. So for example, being an educator, also working for a products company such as Oral-B, Crest, Colgate, those people usually require a master's degree too. So there are lots of different things that you can do as a dental hygienist.
Definitely. And I think that really shows you how spread out the healthcare field can be in
Right.
terms of the different options you have for careers. But also, you mentioned that it's a state exam. So we have a couple students who may be on the call or may watch the video later. They might be located in Missouri. Would it be most beneficial to do a program in Missouri then instead of Kansas?
That's a really good question, Brittany. No, and especially because we're on the state line, um, we host at our school what we call the credits exam, and it's the Central Regional Dental Testing Services. And that, if you take and pass that exam, it covers many states across the country, including Kansas and Missouri. So you could practice in a wide variety of states. I think it's Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, some other states like that. They're all included in that credits exam.
Oh, that's wonderful. So that definitely gives you some flexibility and your family as well, in
Yes.
case later on you have a move or you just want a different experience, as
Right.
a lot of us in the Midwest do. But yeah, I think that's all the questions I had. So I'm just thank you so much for sharing that. But just go into since our professor couldn't be here tonight, if you would like some more info on the PN and RN programs, you could actually attend an information session hosted by Johnson County Community College's Counseling Center. They're a fantastic resource as well. Even if you're not considering JUCO, they could provide you with important information which could actually help you with your post-secondary planning needs. As you see here, here's a couple dates that they have coming up. Obviously, tomorrow. I don't know if they're still taking students being registered, but hey, you don't know if you don't ask. So if you want to join that, you could definitely call that phone number, which is right there, and get registered for one of those info sessions. But there's also some dental hygiene info sessions. So yeah, did you want to talk a little bit more about this info session process?
Hang on, I'm answering one of the questions here.
No, you're good.
Sorry about that.
No.
Okay, well, on the website, we usually post all of the information sessions. November 8th at 5:30, it is virtual. You do have to call the counseling office to register for that. We will have more in the spring. We usually have at least 3, sometimes 4. So, stay tuned for the spring ones, but this is the last one that we're going to have for this semester.
Gotcha.
And
And Dr.
it's hosted by, I'm sorry, it's hosted by
No.
myself and our dental hygiene liaison counselor. So we work in tandem to help the students.
Nice. And Dr. Fote, I actually just thought about this question. Don't know why it didn't come to my mind earlier. But what's the application process like for your programs?
For our program, we open applications June 1st approximately, and they're open through October 1st or so. So about 4 or 5 months to submit an application. We start a section of paramedic once a year. There are no applications for EMR or EMT. Those are all simple, just open enrollment. But if you're going on to the associate's degree, then it is that application. Now, our students need to have all of their gen eds done, so they'll have at a minimum their EMT license, as well as 17 hours of gen ed, which happens to be Comp 1, a social science or econ elective for 3 credits, a humanities elective for 3 credits, and then 8 credits out of math and science, with the minimum of 5 credits being in anatomy and physiology. So if they take 2 separate courses for 4 credits each, separate human anatomy and physiology, the 8 credits will be covered. If they take the combined anatomy and physiology with 5 credits, then they just pop in another 3 of a math or science elective. And then we go through, once we receive all of those those applications, we go through and interview and rank the candidates. And our class starts really around January 3rd or 4th every year. which allows the paramedics then to be done approximately 11 months later. So before Christmas, they're taking their licensure exams, and right around January 1st, they are completely ready to go to work.
Nice. So definitely a streamlined process that is completed in over a year.
Yeah.
And
The other thing
to
I don't think
yeah,
I mentioned was right now is a great time to be or go into EMS, because even if you don't have an employer that wants to hire you and pay you to go to school, there's the Kansas Promise Scholarship,
Oh,
which is a
yes.
last dollar scholarship that will pick up pretty much 100% of the costs along the way through EMS, as well as a number of other fields.
Yeah, dental hygiene has the same, which is awesome.
it's definitely a nice scholarship, which makes it more accessible for Kansas students. So you love to see it. But yeah, thank you both for answering those questions. I really appreciate it. And yeah, oh, there we go. And like I mentioned, I will be sending out this PDF. Here's just a couple resources. We here at Kansas State College Advising Corps actually have found that this Missouri Health Careers Quiz very helpful. It just answers some basic questions which you might not even consider yourself until you actually pose them. So, for instance, can you handle blood? What would you do in this situation? And it kind of gives you a general idea like, okay, if you can't handle blood, maybe this career isn't a good fit for you. We don't need you fainting on the patient. But yeah, so it just gives you a general idea, as well as it breaks down each career path down to the exact education you need for it. So it'll tell you, is this a 2-year program? Is it a 4-year program? Is it med school? It really breaks it down well for you. So I recommend taking that quiz. You might be shocked to see what careers actually are available, and they're not all directly patient facing. There's medical record careers. There's budgeting careers inside the health field. There's a lot of different options. So I definitely recommend taking the time to do it. There's also a recent PDF with the top healthcare careers in Kansas 2028. So it's actually predicting how many of each healthcare field is going to be needed to best support the Kansas economy and, of course, the Kansas population. And you could probably assume it's going to be similar in Missouri due to our proximity to one another. So I definitely recommend checking that out as well. And, of course, links to the Johnson County Community College health programs, as well as contact information if you'd like to receive further information. But yeah, so that was all for the presentation, but now we have some time. In fact, we're doing really well on time. So we have a fair amount of time for questions that you might have, or if the professors would like to elaborate more in case we don't have any questions. I know how it can be on a Tuesday night. So yeah. And just feel free to post the questions in the chat box. And if you don't want the question in the general chat box, feel free to send it to Ms. Foyles in a private message if you'd like to maintain anonymity.
And I did answer one of the questions. Somebody answered, if they took anatomy and physiology in high school, would it count? And I said, only if it was taken for college credit.
Right. Yeah, which most likely you would know that if you took an AP class and you received it, or you actually took the AP exam, or of course there's the College Now program as well. Yep, so you would already have a college transcript with those courses on it if they actually counted. Yeah, and I think that's also a great part is how 2-year degree programs in the medical field can actually bridge to a 4-year degree and beyond. Because unfortunately, I think a lot of students, because of the costs associated with higher education, they kind of go like, well, I can't commit 4 years and 4 years of tuition money to a 4-year program. There's pathways out there that you can do 2 years or even sometimes less and actually get a paying job right after you make those, take those exams. And then eventually, if you want to go back for your bachelor's or master's, you can do so later. It does not have to be one right after the other or even all at once. So don't feel confined in that box.
There's a question that says, is physics required? It is not for our program. And then there is a question about how to, so are the most common bridges you see from programs? What we see from our program is the Associate of Applied Science jump into the bachelor completion. And the bachelor completion programs across the country are usually all online, and they can be done part-time. How do you make my application stand out compared to others? Just do the very best that you can in your science courses. And then if you do an interview, really know what you're talking about each selective healthcare program. Being an orthodontist, you have to be a dentist first, because you have to then go into a specialty. So you would have to go to dental school.
Looks like
And I think
another
a
one.
question just popped up. Can you take college credit like anatomy while in high school? And I think if I'm tackling that question right, we have a fair number of programs in local school districts that do offer the ability to take a dual credit pathway. And so I think there's probably an anatomy or an anatomy and physiology option out there. A lot of students get college credit for their English and several other of those gen eds during their junior or senior year.
Yeah, that's correct. I just talked to somebody today who took a human anatomy. They're in a senior in high school, but they're working at going through Highland Community College and taking those college classes, anatomy and physiology, and that will count.
Yeah, and if I could clarify for my students who live and reside in Missouri right now, you also have Metropolitan Community College. They have the Early College Access Program or the Early College Academy Program, the ECA, and that you can earn college credit through. However, just because you're not a part of that program, talk with your high school counselor and see if there's a way you could take that class during your high school program itself, because they may be able to help you get assigned to that course.
The last question I see is, what would you recommend students do during high school to set them up for success? And that, as far as these healthcare professions that we presented tonight, students really have to be savvy with their sciences. So do well in your science courses, and that will set you up for better success when you move into the college realm.
And I would recommend, even if you can't take, let's say, an anatomy or physiology for college credit during high school, still take the class in high school, because it will make you better prepared for once you take it in college.
Yeah.
That's a great point, Ophelia. Yes, Metropolitan Community College of Kansas City does offer middle college if you'd like to get ahead of college credit and you weren't able to apply for ECA. So there's options out there. And sometimes you can actually procure additional funding for it if you talk to a high school counseling team. They might know of connections or funding opportunities which may not be made public necessarily. So definitely reach out to your counseling team and ask them about that. Yeah. Are there any other questions for our speakers? This has been a wonderful experience. So thank you both once again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would you recommend retaking prerequisite courses if the grades were below a B?
No.
And my answer is no as well.
Because like we said, remember, you could be a 4.0 student, but don't have the other attributes that you need to be in the healthcare profession. So there could be people that, get all A's, but maybe they're just not cut out for this profession. So B's are not bad.
Definitely. And if I could recommend, most likely you'll have to take a public speaking course anyways. But I highly recommend it, especially for healthcare fields, because like Dr. Hansen said, you got to be able to talk. you got to be able to communicate with patients, with their families, have those conversations while also notating them down. So public speaking courses will really prepare you well for that. I know if I didn't have a public speaking course, I would not be on this call right now. So it really does help. But yeah,
we don't really look at extracurriculars from high school.
And we do not either.
Yeah, and that's pretty common. If you're applying for a college program that you have to technically apply once you're a college student, high school curriculums aren't necessarily looked at. It's mostly what you're doing during those college years that are looked at most in scrutiny, I should say.
It used to be once upon a time, way back when I went to college, that you had to do all these extracurricular things to be accepted to a 4-year school, but that really has changed. Awesome.
Well, thank you both once again. I am going to go ahead and close this presentation. If you guys think of any questions, send them my way. My email will be in the registration and the follow-up. I can also forward on the questions, but also make use of those info sessions if you want to learn more about individual programs. And don't be afraid to reach out. You might make connections, you might get to know more people, and who knows what doors that may open. And if college is anything, it's just building a network. And it looks like we have a picture being drawn. But yeah, so thank you both once again. Everyone, thank you for joining. This recording will be available on our YouTube channel. But yeah, have a lovely night, and I will reach out to you guys later.